Good morning and welcome everyone to the 2021 Pittsburgh TechFest presented by Amazon. We are so excited you all can join us this morning. Before we get started, I'd like to make notice of some of our sponsors for today's conference. They are Amazon, IQ Inc., SoftWriters, Aerotech, and General Dynamic Mission Systems. You can visit them throughout the conference on the Sched app, and I put a link in the chat for you all to visit them and see what they have in store on their content cards. So without further ado, I'd like to present our morning opening session with our main event sponsor, Amazon, with Carl Haig and Justin Marks.
Good morning. I'm Carl Haig, Enterprise Support Manager with AWS. I've been here 6 years, and this is...
I'm Justin Marks, Technical Account Manager with AWS. I've been here for a little bit over 2 years.
So thank you for joining us bright and early today to help us kick off Pittsburgh TechFest 2021. Time to take a big sip of coffee as we talk to you about how you can build and innovate faster with AWS Enterprise Support. We're going to talk about the TAM role, some really interesting programs we have available, some of which are available to all AWS customers, regardless of kind of support level. And that's it.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, so running production workloads on AWS isn't always easy. Rapid response becomes very important to maintain things like uptime, meet SLAs. The skills needed to build and run on AWS change as you move towards more abstracted and managed services and new capabilities. Security, performance, cost optimization, those become regular activities as you strive to get more and more out of AWS. Automated issue resolution and infrastructure as code are needed to allow small teams to scale and operate really large workloads that service thousands of customers. And you need to be able to keep up with the ever-increasing changes and improvements to cloud technology. And then most importantly, developers need to be able to experiment and iterate faster than ever before.
I mean, we're at over 200 services, so
yeah.
There's lots of experimentation going on.
It's a lot going on. So when people think of support, they typically think of break-fix engagements, escalations, incident management. And we certainly do our fair share of that here at AWS, but we go way beyond the traditional aspects of support and deliver people, programs, technology that really allow customers to take preventative measures to avoid those incidents, those break-fix events. We found this method to be really successful in allowing our customers to thrive on AWS. So let's start with the people aspect of this. Now, the primary component of enterprise support is a technical account manager, or TAM, like Justin here.
Mm-hmm.
Say hi, Justin.
Hello.
You should really think of your TAM as an extension of your team. TAMs are technical advocates. They'll give you guidance as you progress along your cloud journey. They're your eyes and ears within AWS. They'll notify you when things just aren't quite right here. They bring experts like service team members, product team members, and AWS leaders to you as needed.
And I mean, Carl says that we're an advocate, right? An extension of your team. We really mean that, right? We're in calls weekly, maybe multiple times a week with your teams, with your developers, with your engineers, your execs, whoever it is. Trying to figure out, how things are working there. And then, the Amazon culture, we always believe in meetings, there should be a seat there for the customer, right? We want you to be represented at our meetings, and really the TAM can be a person to sit in that seat and be the one advocating on your behalf. So.
Yep. All right. And so with things like per second metered billing for some AWS services like EC2, invoices from AWS are not always easy to understand. And as you grow on, AWS, you might be looking to leverage multiple accounts. If you want to separate that from prod, you also might want to have AWS accounts per business unit, and you need to do chargebacks, right? So, or you need custom billing reports. This is where the support concierge team comes in. So they help you with things like that. They also help you with things like savings plans, reserved instances, that can be a little tricky to understand in the beginning. So they're a dedicated team of account specialists. They'll help you with all of your billing and account strategy. They will give you guidance on what savings plans to purchase, what instance reservations to make, and all great things like that. Onto programs. So we have a lot of programs here that we offer customers to allow them to build, operate, and scale workloads successfully on AWS. These programs help you run major events, make sure you're well architected, well operated, and really help you and your teams train to become AWS certified. So let's dive in. Infrastructure event management provides focused planning and support for business critical events. Think about the steps that you're going to take to prepare your workload to handle 10x traffic, due to a product launch or due to Super Bowl ad, onboarding, new customers. Mm-hmm. So your TAM is going to work with you over a timeline of several weeks to methodically document infrastructure, make sure things like service limits, load balancers, auto scaling groups are all going to handle that added traffic, so your site doesn't go down due to something like the Reddit hug of death. They also raise awareness about your event internally within AWS. So preparing support engineers, having them kind of ready and on standby to tackle and block any issues that may arise in real time. We take a lot of the learnings from helping launch some of the largest campaigns in Amazon, such as Prime Day, Big Friday, our Super Bowl ad campaigns, and provide those expertise to make sure your event is just as successful. Yeah,
and I mean, these would be events where traditionally maybe you have a war room open and it's all hands on deck. Everybody's awake at 2 a.m. getting ready to push this big feature or do this big maintenance, right? And your TAM will be on those calls with you if they can make it, or they'll make sure that support and other folks that need to be engaged to make sure that that's successful are there. So
yep. There's also well-architected reviews, or WARs, as we call them. They help you benchmark your architecture against AWS best practices that we've learned supporting thousands of customers. So once we do a thorough review with your TAM, you'll get a comprehensive report on your workload, how it lines up against those best practices. This is really going to help you architect for better performance, reliability, security, efficiency, and cost effectiveness as well. Onto cloud operations reviews. So where WARs look at architecture and workloads, operations reviews really focus on the people and processes that run those workloads. And it really helps guide you and your team towards operational excellence. Core provides you with detailed reports focused on preparing, monitoring, operating, optimizing your organization to run things in the cloud. A core report is going to tell you where you're doing great, but it's also going to highlight opportunities to make improvements.
So these may be things like, how do you have guardrails set up? How do you audit and monitor things? How do you identify gaps in that monitoring? Do you have an
incident management process, for instance?
Do you have a postmortem process when something goes down? Like, how do you capture those things and iterate and improve, going forward? So those kinds of things.
And we have a wide range of proactive services that are run by specialists in support, focused on things like microservices, disaster recovery, monitoring, databases, AI/ML, just to name a few. So for tech enablement, we do a lot of that here, training people to learn and use AWS in new and interesting ways. We have game days, which are a fun and interactive way to learn about AWS. We'll get into that a little bit later. We have hackathons that let you experiment and build safely. Immersion days give you deep dive lessons and learnings on all things AWS services. They're really fun and interactive ways to beef up your AWS skills. The last pillar here is technology. So at AWS, we really believe in the power of self-service. We've created a number of tools that allow you to do just that. Are you worried about service limits, security, performance, fault tolerance? Trusted Advisor has you covered. Need to integrate, health events with your own monitoring or alerting solution? Health API will do that. And then you can also create integrations for things like the support console. So whether your team uses Slack or ServiceNow or any kind of workflow automation tools, you can be using those same tools and still open support cases and talk to support engineers in AWS. Onto Trusted Advisor. So Trusted Advisor is a great inspection tool. It lets you look at all of your AWS accounts, and it's built by integrating all those best known kind of best practices that we have at AWS. So things like cost optimization, security, fault tolerance, and service limits are all taken into account. We give you a bird's eye view and flag anything of concern there. Just a couple of examples. So Trusted Advisor will report on things like underutilized EC2 instances, accounts without MFA enabled en route, unrotated access keys, passwords, EBS volumes without snapshots, and there's just a whole host of checks and things that it does.
And the other nice thing about Trusted Advisor is it's available to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just you end up unlocking the full suite of checks with business or enterprise support. And as a TAM who's supporting enterprise customers, this is probably one of the first tools that we have in our toolbox. This is a really good, easy, like first stop kind of report card to get kind of a high level view of a bunch of different things regarding best practices. So
we spoke a little bit about the AWS Health API. So we design things at AWS for failure. And at the scale at which we operate, you can bet something is failing for somebody right now,
yeah.
and all the time. And we want you to be able to automatically respond to those failures too by leveraging the AWS Health API. We actually have an additional solution later that's built on top of that to really let you kind of
Yeah, and if you've heard Werner, our CTO, talk at reInvent or any of the other ones, right? He's famous for his saying like, things are failing all the time.
Yep.
And he's absolutely right. And this is a way that we can provide some visibility and alerts that you can programmatically consume and kind of do whatever makes the most sense for you, right? Whether that's pushing them out to comms channels or trying to having a reactive script or something, right? You can do those kinds of things with this API.
So before we get into some of the more recent TAM-led programs, here's a quick quote from one of our many Pittsburgh customers that we support. Arcadia has helped healthcare organizations of all sizes reduce medical expenses, improve quality of care, and patient healthcare outcomes. Our team helped Arcadia determine the root cause behind S3 costs that were coming up due to writing tags on millions of storage objects. A minor tweak reduced their cost by about $20,000 a month, which is crazy. Additionally, we helped Arcadia upgrade hundreds of Windows instances over a single weekend with zero downtime to their operations. So we have a whole case study out there with a link. You can check it out, and some other cool things that Arcadia and other customers have accomplished with the help of their TAMs and enterprise support. So tell us more about some of the latest programs we have, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Carl. So so far we've gone through what enterprise support is, some of what a TAM does, some of the programs and tools that we have out there for enterprise support customers, and the rest of the customers, right? So as a TAM, right, no 2 days are the same in this job, and being so close to customers gives TAMs a unique perspective on what kinds of problems customers are running into, and maybe how to solve them, right? A lot of that context that we have, maybe we carry that along as feedback to service teams or feature requests that hopefully, make it on the roadmap that we can advocate for. But, some of it will spark TAMs, who are developers or builders to just decide to try to fix it themselves, right? So like I said, let's shift some gears here and talk about some of those programs and solutions that are available today, thanks to some TAMs here at AWS. So these are some various projects that may have started out as an internal tool or some ask from a customer, and and it ended up growing into something that we were able to publish on GitHub or scale out to our whole customer base. So we'll start off with AWS Health Aware. Carl touched on the Health API a little bit. So AWS Health Aware is a turnkey solution provided by AWS that integrates with the health service and the Health API and your communications platforms. So you can see in the graph here, right, where out of the box, Slack integrations, Microsoft Teams, Amazon Chime, email notifications, and then if you want to get creative, you can tie it into EventBridge and then use that to fire off any custom integrations that you feel you might want to extend it to.
Yeah, and it works with AWS organizations, so you can cover all of your accounts with one solution, which really simplifies that for when you have really complex, AWS account structures.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about the Service Health dashboard, right, which everybody can publicly see. but we're also talking about events that might get posted to your personal health dashboard. Issues, changes, notifications, scheduled patching to your Elastic Cache clusters is something pretty recent that showed up there, right? And you know, any other notifications that make it into the health dashboard. And the nice thing is you can deploy AWS Health Aware to the to your main like payer account, and it'll pick up, like Carl said, it'll pick up all of the linked accounts that you have in organizations. And the link here underneath the graph will take you to the blog where we talk through the solution and deploying it, some of the prerequisites, but you can have it up in minutes. It's just real quick, like the architecture overview. Like you can see, this is there's a very obvious gap here, right? That was identified by, you know, some TAMs on our side after working with customers. You know, you have AWS organizations and accounts rolled out. You have all these health API endpoints, and you'd like to bridge the gap between things that show up in that API and your communications platform on the right. So when you drop that CloudFormation template and run it, right, it's going to create a Lambda, and then it's also going to create a DynamoDB table to track those events and the states of those events and those changes so that you can capture and filter and, you know, apply some logic there. And then it stores those webhook endpoints for your communications platforms in Secrets Manager. So they're locked away appropriately. And this obviously doesn't take into account things like IAM roles and other security measures that, you know, that go into this, or, you know, like the scheduled event for the Lambda to fire. But this will basically have the Lambda start pulling the Health API and help, you know, again, bridge that gap with a pretty simple turnkey solution.
Yeah.
All right. So another program that was a TAM idea was the cost optimization workshop. The cost optimization workshop, it's a strategic initiative that helps ensure customers are getting the most out of their AWS investment. You know, I think cost op has come up 2 or 3 times already in the presentation. It's something we, you know, as TAMs, we take seriously. Customers are coming to us all the time asking for ways to help reduce their bills or architect to be cost-minded. And it was especially helpful. This program was especially helpful to customers that were severely impacted, you know, at the beginning of 2020 with COVID-19. And they needed the CAL program to weather the storm of some of the financial uncertainty that maybe they were seeing or their customers were seeing. So yeah, there's multiple pieces here, right? It's a 60 to 90 day workshop. It's been executed across 100 plus customers with a 15% average monthly savings. It's flexible, right? We're willing to make changes to fit your need and your goals and your outcomes there. And it's included as part of enterprise support.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a report that you get at the end that just tells you where to save money, but you also learn a lot about how to do this yourself going forward. So it really puts that cost optimization kind of focus front and center.
Yeah, it does. So like an example timeline, we don't have to go through the whole thing, but you know, after a couple of weeks, we get some agreements, right? You know, we do a deep dive and an analysis on usage and costs in your accounts, generate reports of you know, short, long, medium, and long-term recommendations for potential savings, and then we work with your teams, your engineering teams, your developers, your folks that are hands-on keyboard to implement some of these changes, and then after we get through those reports and understand you know, where the focus is and what's important to you, then we can start crafting things like workshops. If we want to dive into a specific service like DynamoDB or S3 and figure out how to architect more optimized on that service. Or we can also shift gears and focus on you know, optimizing an overall analytics workload, or putting some of those guardrails and governance checks in place to make sure folks are tagging things correctly, right? There's really a whole lot of paths that you can take with this workshop and offering. So if you're on enterprise support, you know, and you're interested, like, please reach out to your account team, let them know, you know, and then after a few iterations and check-ins and workshops, you know, we track things and hope we come out at the end with some savings wins for everybody. The KIR Query Library. So the KIR, CUR, is the cost and usage report. It's very useful. It's a feature in the billing console that gives you a line-by-line breakdown of, you guessed it, cost and usage. It's definitely a tool that we see a lot of customers who feel like they've outgrown Cost Explorer, migrate to, and it is free with the exception of the little bit of S3 storage you end up paying for. And as TAMs, we were supporting customers who were trying to write queries in Athena to extract cost insights from the cost and usage report. And as we were coordinating things and pulling in experts and finding that multiple TAMs were asking, their customers were asking for the same high impact queries, we decided it was time to publish the most common queries and make them available to everybody. So the KIR Query Library, it'll let you get started quickly, right? It's part of the well-architected labs. So the link on the slide here will take you to that section of the well-architected labs. Please don't stop there. If you visited, check it out. There's a lot of really good content, workshops, walkthroughs on there. But the nice thing about the CQL is it lets you get started quickly. You can grab some of these queries, make some very minor modifications, and then start molding and fitting it to exactly what you're hoping to get out of it. And it's open source, right? So CQL is part of well-architected labs. So if you've been digging into KIR and writing Athena queries and extracting some insights that have changed your job for the better, like we'd love to get that feedback. We'd love to get those contributions, back to the library. So, please check it out on GitHub and let us know.
All right, on to game days. So game days are a collaborative learning exercise that really tests the skills in implementing AWS solutions to solve real-world problems in a gamified, risk-free environment. So this is a completely hands-on opportunity for technical professionals to explore AWS services, architecture patterns, best practices, and really learn, group cooperation. The approach is a little bit unconventional compared to other learning formats. So rather than kind of talking to people and lecturing them, this is a hands-on learning activity. There's not a lot of prescriptive guidance on how to solve certain things. And so you and your team of 4 need to kind of get together and think creatively about how you are going to solve the challenges that are posed ahead of you. There's no single right answer. People come up with all kinds of ways to solve common problems, and it's really fun. It's a fun and open-ended way to kind of, learn by doing and learn by building.
I mean, for example, as far as like how unconventional and ambiguous some of it is, it'll be like, here's some code, deploy it to this web server. Oh no, there's a problem, and that's all it says.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what the problem is, and your teams kind of can work through their own solution to come to an answer. So yeah, it's definitely fun. Yeah. So
some of you might have participated at some of these, maybe at reInvent, Reinforce, or AWS Summits. We offer a number of broad and focused game days. Some of them are covering things like optimizing suboptimal architectures. Another covers setting up an event-driven security strategy, and another is migrating an e-commerce web platform to containers on AWS. There are new game days being created all the time. If you're interested in running one for your team, reach out to your AWS account manager, and we can help you get started there.
You can see some of the categories here too.
Yeah, we have chaos engineering, CI/CD, microservices, security, sustainability, and migrations.
And I'm sure with a room full of developers, many of you have talked to at least 3 or 4 of those, if not more, if not all of them, right? Yep. So, and these are great because, folks may be familiar with them because we run them at these large, they're kind of this cornerstone piece of some of our bigger events. But the nice thing about game days is we can run them for you and your team, right? We can scope this down and just have something private for,
Yep.
for XYZ company and kind of do some team building and gamify some things, right? And,
So here are some stats, and you get cool trophies as well that are handed out at game days. So during 2019, 2020, we ran 823 AWS game days for over 33,000 attendees. We polled our attendees to see whether or not this was a valuable activity. over 88% of people said they felt that they learned something new on AWS, and 92% said they'd love to participate in another game day in the future.
Yeah, so if you're, again, if you're planning on attending, one of the events this year, definitely check game day out if you haven't.
We run them in person and virtually as well.
Yeah, and if you're interested in running one for your team, like reach out to your account team, your account manager, and let them know that game day sounds like something you'd like to do.
Yep.
All right.
So lastly, we couldn't help ourselves here, and we had to let you know that we're hiring right here in Pittsburgh. The Amazon Pittsburgh office was founded in 2015 with teams in AI for language understanding and translation, Alexa engineers, Amazon retail, AWS, and even healthcare. So we have many positions today open for software developers, data and machine learning scientists, computational linguists, technical account managers, product managers, program managers. So be sure to check out the link and look at some roles, and feel free to apply. And if you have any other questions, maybe more specific to the AWS and TAM role, you could reach out to myself or Justin here on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out, ask us. We're happy to kind of take a chat, talk to you about what we do here, some of the customers we support, and why it's an exciting place to work.
Yeah. All right.
So
and thanks for attending our keynote. For TechFest 2021, right? We're gonna transition over the Q&A segment. I know we probably have about 15, 20 minutes, something like that.
Yep.
Right. While we're doing that, and while we're shepherding and figuring out, what we're gonna pick up here, please scan this QR code on your phone. Let us know how we did today. Right. We're a very feedback-oriented organization, and Carl and I would love all of the positive, negative, critical, really any feedback you have. It's 5 questions, should only take you 30 seconds on your phone.
Yep.
We appreciate it. So
with that, I think we can open it up for our Q&A session. Does anyone have any questions?
So right now, we do not have any questions in the chat. If anyone has any questions, you can type them in the chat field, and we'll be happy to read them aloud and get our speakers to answer those for you. In the meantime, while people are still trying to figure out what questions to ask, or maybe they're taking their survey that's on the screen, we are so excited for everyone to be here for Pittsburgh TechFest 2021. Hopefully we will be in person again for next year, because I know this event is very big on networking and getting to see and know and get to know some new people in the industry. Once this session does conclude, there will be the next set of breakout sessions will start at 9 o'clock this morning. There's going to be 3 concurrent. They are responsible innovation, designing systems and infrastructure for autonomous vehicles, and onboarding a fully remote workforce, lessons from a pandemic hiring surge. So we're really excited to hear those presentations this morning. And I see we do have a question that did come through. Guys, Jean's asking, she'd like to learn more about your game days. Can you tell us a story about one you participated in and what people worked on and how it went?
Yeah, so there's some interesting game days that we've run before for one's called Unicorn Rentals. I think that was one of the first game days that was created.
Yep.
So you're like a new employee at a fictitious company called Unicorn Rentals, and you're kind of tasked with building out or maintaining your microservices, building microservices architecture to run and support the e-commerce website. And then at the same time, as TAMs, we have tools in the game day toolkit that let us start to basically make changes to the AWS account that you're operating, and we start to kind of break things. So you'll suddenly find you'll start getting like 400 errors on certain web requests, and you won't really know why. So certain orders aren't coming through. You start to kind of see that show up in CloudWatch metrics. And so we're kind of behind the scenes being all villainous, breaking things for you essentially, and watching the various teams kind of identify the problems, whether we took down a load balancer, whether we remapped an IP address, whether we modified a security group so that you couldn't make web requests into those load balancers or instances. Those are some of the fun experiences we've had where we've really, it's really enjoyable. People are trying to, you kind of see people kind of banging their head against the wall, trying to figure out like, what are we doing? Like, how did this thing go down? How do we troubleshoot and diagnose the failure? And then, they need to go in and start rapidly kind of making changes to fix those. And the way it works is like you accumulate points, the more uptime you have, and the longer things are working, and the more orders you can process over time. And then eventually the team that was able to identify and remediate all those issues the quickest ends up getting kind of the most points, and they get the big unicorn trophy. I think, we didn't really explain the unicorn logo there, but I think that actually is where it comes from.
Yeah, the original one was like you're deploying a web app where you are the unicorn rental industry is booming, and you've decided you're going to rent unicorns out in an Uber or Lyft style kind of application, and you click it brings up a whole map, and you can send unicorns to different latitudes and longitudes, and it's definitely fun. Some of the new security ones are very interesting. I've helped do some of the testing before it made it out the gate, and ran some events internally for folks that work at AWS so that we can kick the tires on it. And it worked great virtually too, right? I think there was I think we all miss doing some of these events and stuff in person, right? It was definitely fun having a large conference room full of people where you can hear the the tension building as things break. But yeah, the virtual format works really great. I think we've really hashed that out too. And we've run, again, because we run these things at reInvent, right? You can imagine hundreds, heck, even I could imagine it could scale to more than that at this point with the virtual offerings we have. So it's it's really fun. And who doesn't love a unicorn trophy at the end, right?
Right. So I'm going to hop down just to keep on that topic, and then we'll go to the other two questions as well. But are you able to pivot game days for students who are looking for more AWS experience?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting idea. I don't see why we couldn't, but I think we probably have to talk to the game day teams just to make sure that things are all set there. Yeah. As far as students and stuff go, I mean, I can speak a little bit that I'm wearing my Amazon Future Engineer shirt today. During Computer Science Education Week in December, we do run Hour of Code events at local elementary, middle, high schools in the area. I think we've done it for 3 or 4 schools and maybe 2 or 3 of the nonprofit orgs that also work with students. So, if you're interested there, I'd say definitely reach out. I'm happy to coordinate some of that. We also have some class chats and some other things where we can bring Amazonians in from around the world from different backgrounds, whether it's AI or, program managers or whatever, to come talk to a class about, what it's like to work here, what it's like to get a career in tech.
Also, I think on the game day question, we run those on kind of burner accounts. So you don't need to have an AWS account to participate in the game day. We provide those all for you.
Yeah.
So
no risk to you.
You don't, as a student, I can imagine, it doesn't cost you anything to participate in a game day. None of the resources and things that you spin up are going to be charged to you. So that's purely on us. We take care of all of that.
Yep.
Awesome. Lisa Merwin's asking, she'd like to hear more about AWS Health Aware and how it might apply to physician practices.
Physician practices?
Okay, so there might have been a misunderstanding. So it's not for the healthcare industry. The AWS Health API is used for communicating. Again,
AWS health events. To the needed operations or other stakeholders that operate the things on AWS.
With managed services, right? Like we help manage some of this, like patching lifecycle, the software, and some of those things. But we put the control to reboot and do maintenance and stuff in the customer hands, and we need to make sure that folks are aware that there are patches that are coming down the pipe, or reboots that may need to happen. And that health API is like an infrastructure health API. But we do have healthcare focused services, right? We just recently, which one did we announce? It was like the health.
There's like Comprehend Medical.
Comprehend Medical. I think there's some, I'm trying, if it was health, there's some data lake solution that recently came out for healthcare.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot out there. And if you're interested, I'd say definitely reach out to like an account executive or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. The next question is, how was working over the pandemic for you guys and your office?
That's a good question. So our team specifically, we were largely working kind of hybrid remote, kind of before it was cool, and everybody was doing it due to COVID. Our offices are pretty quiet right now still. It's a bit early in the morning as well, but I think my team at least were kind of distributed all across the state of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. So we really had to, leverage a lot of the technology and keep meetings, often take lots of meeting notes, kind of over communicate for the lack of having people in the office to talk to. You kind of lose those kind of water cooler conversations. So you kind of have to make a meaningful effort to do it. But I think the one thing we all miss the most of all is travel. Things like that.
And getting out of our house. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think the biggest change though, at least from my perspective, being, primarily customer facing, was the shift in conversations we had to have with our customers, right? Because the pandemic affected everybody in various ways, whether it was trying to help companies shift to a remote workforce, right? And helping them set up things like VDI and workspaces and Slack, and trying to get things more chat ops focused, or like, hey, we need to downsize drastically. We need to scale our workloads down so that we can control costs a little bit more tightly. Lots going on. It definitely was a busy time, and I think we're grateful that we were kind of used to the working remote thing before we were kind of forced to pivot, right? So, but again, every business unit and team is kind of doing things differently here. And obviously Amazon's sticking to, and AWS is sticking to all the CDC guidelines and all the local, guidances and stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. I see that Lisa is giving a suggestion to reach out to the Sarah Hines House and the YMCA as examples to grow your team, or to reach out to students in the city. More of a comment, yeah,
absolutely.
Like
if anybody in the crowd wants to make a connection, I'm happy to talk to any nonprofits in the area, any schools, right? I'm trying to exercise some of the relationships that we already have in the office today to kind of expand this. But yeah, I'd love to.
We've also run things like Deep Racer events. We actually have Deep Racer cars at a full circuit that we can take somewhere, and
we have a deep lens camera. Like we've done presentations at STEMFest out in Robinson Mall, where we bring some of the Alexa team, and we set up like a camera that you can interact with Alexa, and it'll tell you what it sees on the camera. There's really no, I'd say almost no limit to like some of the cool things we could probably set up if somebody in the area is interested. So please reach out, like hit us up on LinkedIn. I think I don't know if we had our full email addresses on the first slide. I know we had our aliases, but
whatever we had on the first slide, just put at Amazon.com.
At Amazon.com.
And you can reach out to us.
Yeah, but LinkedIn's probably the easiest. So yeah, just reach out. I would love to talk to anybody about those, about supporting some of those initiatives.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I don't see any other questions in the chat field, but great presentation. Thank you guys so much. And we look forward to maybe hearing from you guys again here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
for sure.
Thanks to everyone who showed up early in the morning and had their coffee with us. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of TechFest.
On that note, we have about 20 minutes before the next session starts, so you can refill your coffee, check some emails, and I hope everyone will join us back at 9 o'clock for the next set of breakout sessions.
See ya.
Thank you.